Hey everybody, John Delarose here, the leading Hispanic voice in science fiction. I am back from the great state of Tennessee, my favorite place on earth, LibertyCon in Chattanooga. It was the best weekend I've ever had, maybe somewhere up there. But we had a wonderful time, and I announced at a panel, the Steampunk panel at the con on Sunday, that I'm about to get into the Summer of Steampunk, which I'm going to make a hashtag Summer of Steampunk. This is going to start with my brand new novella. It's going to be called Night Training, and it takes place right after For Steam and Country and bridges the gap between books 1 and 2. It has the perspective of the character James, Zara's best friend from her home, as he trains to become a knight, obviously, as the title conveys. So we have Edwin Boyette about to read for us here tonight, which is great. I'm excited to be with you. Edwin, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Getting ready for 4th of July. So just having a relaxing evening, reading some steampunk with the renowned science fiction and steampunk author John Delarose. So, and I think I probably me and a few of your other fans told you should go deeper into James, if I remember right. After,
yeah, you guys bugged me into doing that, and so I'm like, you know what? You guys are giving me money. Whatever you want, I'm going to do.
It's not literary prostitution whatsoever.
That's kind of the job. We keep. So yeah, and there's going to be more of it. I've kind of got James's next solo story in my head. I got to get past a couple other things that I have committed first. If you're not aware of some of the stuff I'm doing, this is the book one, by the way. It's out now for Steam and Country. This is my bestseller. It won an award. People love it, and it's still chugging good in the sales. And we'll be coming out with the novella sort of sequel to this that we're going to read tonight on July 18th. The actual full book sequel from Zara's perspective is going to be out in August, and then book 3 will be out in September. So I've lined all these up so that we can get a nice big universe. Everybody can get their like binge, and it's going to be a pretty epic story with a lot of war going on. So you'll like it. So that's going on, and then obviously I've been talking about comics I've been doing. We're going to be relaunching Flying Sparks here, which is my comic. This is my superhero comic. This is going to go on Indiegogo on July 23rd. So I'm very busy with that too, but that's not my only comic. I'm adapting the Ember War, which is Richard Fox's best-selling Amazon series. This is a series that has like 100,000 readers. It's huge. This is bigger than anything Marvel and DC puts out by far. So these projects are going a bit crazy on me, but we're doing what we can, and I have a lot of work to do. So I'm going to leave it to you now, Edwin.
All right, now let me set you up here. So this series is called The Adventures of Baron von Monocle. Okay, the first full-length novel is For Steam and Country. The protagonist of this story is the daughter of it's not exactly a Zeppelin. What would be an airship captain? An airship captain, I guess. Is the Baron von Monocle an airship captain?
Airship captain's a good way to describe him.
His daughter inherits Zyra. His daughter Zyra inherits this airship and goes on an interesting, I don't want to spoil too much. How do I say this? She goes on a bit of a rescue mission. And the primary character of this novel is sort of her childhood companion and neighbor, and kind of shows up again at the tail end of Zyra's adventure. It plays a fairly critical role, I guess.
Yeah, he plays a pretty critical role, but he's sort of tagging along. So what I did with this series, it kind of drives me crazy when you have people who are just too good at what they do, and they're just magically ass kickers, basically, especially when they're teenage protagonists. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to start my series out where I've got inexperienced teenagers, and they're definitely driving the adventure, but they're kind of tagging along with more experienced military officers in a lot of the ways. And I did this intentionally so we can actually watch them grow up over the course of the first three books and really come into their own as people. So while Zara really got, because it's in her perspective in the first book, she got a lot of face time and got a lot of growing up that she did really quickly. We didn't actually see a lot of what happened to James. So this novella that's coming out is going to expand upon that and expand upon his role as a character. And you know, I mean, who knows? I can. He might get some much bigger roles later, just based on what's spinning in my head right now.
All right, let's get into it. So the title of the novella is Night Training. Once again, the protagonist of this book is James, and a knight is a specific function. They're almost, I told John, they're almost like steampunk commandos. And we'll see that a little bit, I think. So here we go.
This is your special forces. Yeah.
Wooden swords clanked against each other. It didn't create quite the exciting steel-on-steel clashing sound I'd imagine I'd be making when I first entered into the Knights of the Crystal Spire. That would be reserved for when I reached a journeyman rank, or so my instructors told me when I begged them for a real sword. It only redoubled my resolve. I intended to be the fastest apprentice to ever become a journeyman. The Crystal Spire loomed above the training courtyard, casting a shadow across half of the cobblestone patio, obscuring my opponent, Tristan, in darkness. A few horseless carriages putted in the background, echoing through the city streets. Tristan stepped forward into the light. He had red hair and freckles with green eyes. Like me, he wore Luke's training garb of white tunic and brown pants. We would train with armor later. I hope by the time I made it to Master Knight, some of King Malachi's court scientists would invent some new rendition of the armor with mechanical cooling, or perhaps even the ability to fly like the airship that brought me to Rizandlia City. John, am I pronouncing Rizandlia correct?
Rizlandia. So
Rizlandia. Rizlandia. All right, very good.
Rolls off the tongue.
Those thoughts distracted me for a brief second. One Tristan used to strike. He thrust his wooden sword at my side. I was too quick for him. I lifted my arm and dodged to my right. Tristan overextended, his weight precarious on his forward foot. Reaching across my body with my free hand, I grabbed his wrist and tugged him off balance. "Hey," Tristan shouted. He stumbled. I spun, whirling my sword around to smack his back. The blow would leave a welt, but we were encouraged to fight as if these battles were real. Tristan stumbled to the side, dropping his sword. He winced. "Match to James Gentry," said Sid, the master knight who watched the class. The other boys clapped, but with little enthusiasm. They didn't like me. The scowls on their faces said as much. Even though I'd been an apprentice for 4 weeks, I hadn't been made a friend. The other apprentices banded together into little groups, but none would include me. Worse, they taunted me. "Oh, I bet James is going to go cuddle up with one of the other master knights instead of share quarters with the other lowly apprentices," I'd heard Tristan saying last evening when I went to follow one of the knights to watch his sword training. I'd been given permission to stay up late to watch him practice. It wasn't a negative thing. This place created hardness in people I hadn't experienced in the countryside of Plains Road Village. I missed my family and my friends. My parents were gone. I had to accept it, though I didn't like to think about their deaths. When our farm had been overrun by Wyranth soldiers. John, am I saying Wyranth correctly?
That one's good to go. Yes.
Okay. It was Let me take this from the beginning then. My parents were gone now. I had to accept it, though I didn't like to think about their deaths, where our farm had been overrun by Wyrant soldiers. It was just another distraction, something to pry me from the focus I needed to get through these lonely days. Back home, I'd also had a best friend, Zyra von Monocle, or Zerbear, as I like to call her. The first time I arrived in Rislandia, Rislandia? Rislandia. Rislandia City.
You got it.
She'd she'd come with me, but ever since she went on her mission to rescue her father, she'd barely given me any consideration. She was always off gallivanting on her airship, just like she used to complain of her father doing. Apples don't far from apples don't fall far from the tree. My heart stung just thinking about her. It ripped any joy I received from my victory over Tristan right out of my chest. I returned my sword to the rack beside Sid, who patted me on the back in congratulations. At least the older knights seemed to respect me. They had ever since I'd gone on my first mission to follow Zyra and help her in case there was any trouble. Because I'd been friends with her, they thought I'd be a help. Bringing apprentices on dangerous missions into Wyrinth territory was fairly unprecedented, though. The others whispered that I was being treated with special privilege. The knights didn't help matters when they spoke of me. Pure, unrefined talent, like I've never seen, I'd overheard Sid saying one evening while he drank ale in the common mess. I wasn't the only one who'd overheard it. The other apprentices had been jealous ever since. We'll break for the day. Don't forget, you have copying and scribe work to be done, Sid said, pulling me back to reality and away from my moping thoughts. Uh, don't we have a new printing press to send missives with? One of the other apprentices asks. You'll never know when you'll be out in the field and need to drop a message. Scribe work is one of the most important duties we can do as knights. The kingdom depends on us to swiftly deliver messages, Sid said. He clapped his hands together. Dismissed. Everyone went their separate ways. I glanced over to the palace, wondering what Princess Reina, the heir to Rislandia, was doing. Not like not like she'd have much time to see me again, though she was the one who took enough interest to recommend me for night training. I shook my head and walked back to my quarters. Under the covered pathway to our dormitories, I could hear echoes of the other apprentices talking they were who likely thought they were out of earshot. Tristan was one of the boys, and a stockier boy with brown hair. Reginald Ducurrent walked with him. Reginald was a noble from Highview City, a place in the foothills of the Oler Mountains at the very northeast corner of the kingdom. You were supposed to be the one to beat that spoiled brat, Reginald said. I bit my tongue. Spoiled? I had to work in the fields for as long as I could remember, and this noble accused me of being spoiled. I clenched my fist. But no, I couldn't confront the other boy now. It was best to hang back and listen. I know. He tricked me. He doesn't fight fair, Tristan said. Next time you don't fight fair. Next time you don't fight fair either. Break his leg, Reginald said. My eyes went wide. What could I do? If I told Sid or one of the other knights, I would be seen as a snitch. That was the last thing I needed for my reputation. It wouldn't be good to head into the dormitory either. If the boys were this heated over me, I needed to stay away until they cooled down. I spun around and headed towards the spire. The words hurt, but they were just words. Even if they tried to hurt me, I'd outperform them all. I had to. There was nowhere else for me to go.
Strike first, strike hard, no mercy.
Little Cobra Kai action there. And that is chapter 1. Let me get some coffee here. Wet the old whistle. Ah, not bad, John. Not bad. I've read this before, but I haven't read this much of it out loud before.
Yeah. So we're gonna coax you into doing audiobooks, right?
Maybe for the novella, but I'm still an amateur and I've never tried video production of this length. And I wonder, so for audiobooks, because I haven't had a chance to listen to an audiobooks,
Yeah.
do people try and change their tone for the different characters or the different narration, or do they just try and keep a steady tone throughout?
It depends. It depends on the narrator.
Right.
Some do. You know, if you haven't really tried that before, I think you'll sound awkward doing it.
Right.
But
right.
but yeah, I mean, it's something people practice, and I think the best audio narrators are very good at doing that, and making it sound natural. But yeah, a lot of the like kind of indie ones also just kind of stick with the script. So
yeah, and I don't even pretend to think that I'm a professional. I am an enthusiastic fan.
my gal who did for Steam and Country did a little bit like on the Baron von Monocle logs. Like she'd deepen her voice a little bit because it's from her father's perspective. So she would do it on those, and she'd do it just like she'd very subtly do it. And I kind of liked that. I liked a little bit of dialogue tweaking, but I thought when it goes over the top, it sounds kind of weird. Now the guy who's doing the Stars Entwined, he is a voice actor. He's a guy who I actually know him because he produces audio dramas, and I was pretty into that and trying to make my own audio dramas for a while. But there's no money in that, guys. Just And so I met him through that, and he can do really dynamic voices. So he's going to do that, and we'll see how that goes. I mean,
nice.
Yeah.
And that is a smoothly written book. I noticed when I read some of that out loud, the dialogue was very polished. There wasn't any awkward phrasing in there at all. Like some stuff is meant to be read and not read out loud, but
yeah. And audiobooks really help that. Like when you're prepping audiobooks, you really get a sense for that and can rephrase some stuff. So I think we actually have two different versions. I think you have I think you have a version 1 because you actually read out a couple of things I don't have in mind.
Oh no,
but it's fine. That's okay. I mean, it's basically the same anyway. So it's I mean, it's not we're talking like a couple words different in different spots, but I think I just cleaned it up a little after making that file originally. But yeah, I mean, it never ends. I mean, you'll find if you're a writer, you're going to find something in there that you'll want to tweak for the rest of your life, and you just got to move on at some point. So
yeah, there's some point where good has to be good enough.
Yeah,
and you got to otherwise you'll fuss with something for years, and that's no good. The best books are the ones that get read, not the perfect ones.
Yeah, exactly. My thought.
All right. Do we want to keep going with chapter 2?
Yeah, we'll go with chapter 2. So this is a very short thing, guys. So I think we're going to stop after chapter 2, just because I want people to actually buy this. And it's we're already going to get into like 20% of it. So this could be really cheap. I'm throwing it up there, probably 99 cents, just to kind of get people excited. This is more to get people excited for book 2. Of the main series than anything else, and to kind of just add a little depth to the characters here. So I hope you enjoy it.
All right, let's get on it. The smell of beef stew permeated the mess hall. My stomach grumbled after the hard day of combat training and the intense focus of copying parchments for the last several hours. The mess was large enough to fit about 200 people. though fewer than 100 currently occupied the tables. The knights totaled about 400 in strength, though most of the journeymen or above were out on assignment. Rislandia couldn't spare a man in their war against the Wyrinth, and the knights offered a crucial support role to the Grand Risandlian army. Only a few remained to train the next generation of knights. I stood in line and received my bowl of stew before turning to the tables. None of the other boys looked at me. They didn't want me sitting with them. It'd been like this for more than 8 weeks since I'd returned from the Wyranth Empire. I was tired of dealing with it. All I wanted to do was work hard and become a knight, same as them. Why did they have to make it so awkward? But I was used to being alone. My parents died more than 2 months ago when the Wyranth attacked my hometown. Most of the boys here didn't know what it was like to lose family, to be left with no home, no friends. Well, I had Zerbear, but she was off gallivanting on her airship now. Ever since she had inherited it from her father, she'd been far too busy to check in on her friends in the capital. She probably never spared a thought for me. I couldn't help but sigh. A couple of journeymen sat across from me. They wore they wore pins comprising only the angelic wings of the crest of Malachy on their tunics. They talked amongst themselves and didn't acknowledge the lowly apprentices across from them. I was doomed to be alone for the foreseeable future. All I could think to do was throw myself harder into my work and prove myself as a knight. When we were all settled and chowing on our stew, another journeyman stood in front of the room. Ethan von Lantern. Ethan von Lantern. He was a little taller than I was, with blonde hair and a bit more muscular of a build. He'd been training with the Knights for more than 2 years, and rumor had it that he was due to be promoted to a Master Knight soon. In the meantime, he'd been designated as head journeyman, which meant he directed some of the other journeymen in their chores and gave announcements at mealtime. Ethan cleared his throat. "Hello, fellow knights." "Hello, journeyman," everyone shouted back. Everyone's attention was firmly on him now, and the energy in the room lifted to where most had smiles on their faces. It was amazing what a few rousing words could do, and Ethan delivered them with a passion and intensity I wasn't sure I could copy. One day, though, I would be like him. "The High Knight has a message for you. In 1 week's time, we will be having a competition among the apprentices. The winner in this class will be paired with a journeyman on real missions for King Malachy. If you do well here, you may be bumped forward in line to be promoted to journeyman. The High Knight asks that you keep yourself well rested, well fed, and focused so you might perform at your best. Thank you." The apprentices cheered. All look all too eager to get on the action, myself included. "I'm going to win this so I can be paired with Ethan," Tristan said from the table behind me. "Only if I don't beat you first," Reginald said. "As long as we don't let James Gentry win," Tristan said. The boys at the table laughed. I felt the urge to turn around and punch Tristan. Instead, I angrily funneled stew into my mouth. They were right to fear my victory. No matter the competition, I would be in the top running again amongst the class. I would show them. If I became a journeyman, none of what they said would matter anymore. Winning this competition became the most important thing in my life. And that's the end of chapter 2.
Cool. Yeah, so this sets the stage. I really like. I think in YA, doing a school setting is a sort of important component to being kind of I guess, the more archetypal YA type of book. And I like doing competitions too, because you know, good competitions make for some excitement, and you don't necessarily have to have the overall plot danger in that, but you get the excitement rolling, and you get the action rolling early on through competition. And yeah, the main plot twist happens pretty shortly here after this, and that's where it gets really exciting. But you know, we're already 10% through the story, so yeah.
But that's definitely enough to give people some sensation of what the novella is about.
Yeah, and yeah, it's mainly just to flesh out James Gentry. I think he's an interesting character, and I think he'll get more interesting as the series progresses here too. I don't know. I think I'm going to label this story outside of the main like Adventures of Baron von Monocle. I don't think I'll label it with that, just so people don't get confused. I think people should progress in Zara's perspective all the way through, and then maybe I'll label this something like, you know, James Gentry Apprentice Knight, you know, book 1 or something.
So now, how are you going to tie it back in? Are you going to call it like Rassandlian Tales, or?
Yeah, that's what I got on the top of the cover. So I think people definitely see it. I just want to be careful so that people don't go to this and go, "What the heck?" And you know, I also want to view this as kind of a book 1 in some ways, so that people can just pick this up, because I tried to do a pretty standalone story. I do think you know, I want people to be able to access my stuff, which a lot of people, for their sequels and things like that, you know, kind of leave cliffhangers and all that, and it makes it very difficult to pick things up, you know, when a new book comes out. I want to try to avoid that as much as possible.
Right. I think you give enough. I think you give enough background there. Give enough background there where somebody can jump into it. I'm trying to remember if there's anything that would be really challenging to understand. I don't think so. I don't think so. I think you give enough exposition where people can jump right into that.
Yeah, he's in night school. That's all you got to know. And obviously, I mentioned I mentioned airship and a few steampunky type of thoughts he has. Yeah, I wanted to create knights. I like the whole knight culture thing. But you know, I transported it into that sort of like late 1800s sort of vibe of a world, to where, you know, it's a different type of society than your general knight and squire society. So like an apprentice system works a little more, you know, makes a little more sense than like having a squire follow you around and things like that. You know, in a more industrial age, I thought.
So do you have this whole series diagrammed out already?
Well, I have it written through book 3. I have for the main series. I have book 4 and 5 planned. I have a basically. All right, I guess I'll try not to spoil too much. Book 2 through 4 really is almost its own trilogy in a way. Book 1 is really introducing Zara and her coming of age, so it's its own thing, but it does set the stage also. You know, just depending on how things go. I mean, guys, I'm going to be honest with you here. I'm driven by sales. I will focus on what people want, right? So if things go really well, you know, obviously there's going to be a lot more to come, and I've got it kind of mapped out where I've got like a book 4 idea pretty much ready. I want to do book 5 as like a standalone sort of thing that's just different, because I want to get away from certain things and just show adventuring, you know, just as a standalone thing, as a kind of breath of fresh air in between epic crises. And then I've got another epic crises after that, which gets set up a little bit. I'm not even going to say how it gets set up because it'll spoil things. Now, on the James end, I've got a second novella, maybe novel planned. It depends on how long it ends up being. It will take place this takes place in between books 1 and 2 of the main series. The next James one will take place in the middle of book 3. James kind of veers off and does his own thing. And so I'm going to wait until that book's out to kind of start on that. And then you get to see, you get to see the paths kind of diverge a little bit. And he kind of comes into his own a little bit more. So got that. And I've got a potential idea for a story after that involving him also.
And when this gets further along, it makes sense. Making some sort of graphic novel out of out of this world might be fun. I would think the imagery alone would look good with the steampunk setting. There's a lot to be done with that.
Yeah, I'm excited to do that, and we've kind of both been pinging Mitch Brightweiser on that. So hopefully once he gets kind of Red Rooster out of his system here for a second, he'll want to do things. I think in the comics world, I'm gonna have to come out with my crowd funds and all that. And I'm an unknown in some degree in the comics world, even though I've been doing this for a while. And so people, I'm not sure, look to me as the go-to comics writer yet, but I think that's going to change by the end of the year. I think Flying Sparks is going to be pretty successful on its own, and I think when we do the Ember War Kickstarter, it's gonna hit these high levels where people are going to go, where did this, just like DNC and Ethan Van Sciver kind of did with theirs. I think people are it's gonna reach levels like that just because this is a bigger deal than people realize, and they're going to go, where did this come from? And when those two hit and I deliver, when I deliver great books, because they're already in process and going to be done before I even get the Kickstarters going, which is the best part about this. I think the comic world's going to change.
How many for the Ember Wars? For the Ember Wars, how many pages of dialogue do you have now done?
I have I've scripted 72 pages out of the 120 that it's going to be. We've got 48 pages of art done on the line art, and then we've got the first issue done on the which 24 pages on with the colors and lettering. So nice. Yeah, so by September when I launch this, I want to have 3 issues completely in the can. It's supposed to be 5-issue long thing. And a lot of what we're going to do with this Kickstarter is we really want to make the entire Ember War series. It's a 9-book series by Richard Fox. It's a really epic space war against aliens. It's amazing. And if we end up raising enough money, we can get the whole series cranking, and that's the main goal.
Was Castilla the original publisher for Ember, or who was the original publisher for Ember War?
Richard Fox self-published it.
Self-published it. Mm-hmm. Oh wow! And he was very successful with that, though, right?
Yeah, each book sold about 100,000 copies. So if you're a Marvel or GC fan, you know that your books in general are selling like 20 to 40,000 copies. So Richard Fox on his own with his books, his novels, is outpacing the vast majority of Marvel and DC books by like 2.5 times. This is a big deal.
Yeah. So you think his novel audience is going to jump aboard the graphic novelization?
That's the great question. I'm hoping that I'll start to build a track record with my comics. It's going to be the creative team on the comic. The cool part is the same as my Flying Sparks comic. So if you like my Flying Sparks comic, I've got the same artist. It's got the same writer. So we're gonna roll that into a sci-fi setting where actually I write books in regularly, and of course we've got Richard's whole backdrop on there. So I think we'll build a track record on my end, and if 5% of his audience converts, we still have one of the most successful Kickstarters out there if you think about it.
Now, are you actually? I know you're not the artist, but you're actually composing all the scenes and so forth. You're doing the full-on script, or are you doing the dialogue and?
Yeah, full-on script. So I took the novel, and I've got his book. I don't have it on me, but I read through it. I took notes in the little margins. I dog-eared it where I thought the issues would end. So I'd be like, this would really make one comic issue of text. And I went through it and did that. I took, and from there I just broke it down scene by scene, panel by panel, like I usually do for comic scripts. So I took, like, where there's kind of like iconic dialogue, I took that and put it in, but because like prose dialogue doesn't translate really that well to comic dialogue, you really want short bursts that are less, I don't know the best way to say it, less prosaic, I guess. in comics, because you just want to get the point across immediately and then let the art do the talking. So you have to kind of pare a lot of that down and change it in some instances. And then just because the novels are so long and there's so much going on, you know, I had to cut scenes and kind of decide what was important for the comic level of the story. So it's actually, writing this has been a lot more work than any comic script I've ever done in my entire life. So yeah.
It's a lot to distill down, yeah.
Yeah. So it's easier to come up with something from scratch because you don't have so many rules to follow, if that makes sense. So this is it's challenging, but it's also a lot of fun. So yeah.
And theoretically, there's 100,000 some of his fans that are either going to be happy or angry with you. So
I know. I hope they don't get
angry. Make them happy. Make them happy.
But you know what? Richard reads my scripts the whole way. He approves every bit of dialogue I put in. You know, then he approves the comic once it's done. So you know, I'm staying as faithful to him as possible because you know, he's my boss at the end of the day.
Oh, good, good. How long did it take the two of you to get calibrated with working each other?
Not bad. Richard is really cool. I need to live stream with him more. I've done it once. He's just a purely business guy. He's definitely one of those like pulp writer types. It's like, get it out, get it done as fast as possible. And so I'm on that same page and wavelength, and it makes it really easy because he just wants more and he wants it out now, and he wants to get it to the fans.
Right. Chuck Dixon kind of seems to be like that real workman-like style, but he's got enough talent where he can pull that off, and with his workman-like style, he can give you something, you know, legendary.
Yeah, and I think Richard's got a lot of that same vibe as Chuck. So if you like the Chuck Dixon action sort of comic books, I think Richard, if you're interested in looking at books, does that same sort of thing novel wise. That's part of why it's exciting to do this. This is definitely a book that you know, as soon as I read it, I was like, wow, I'd love to see this visually.
Oh, cool. All right, so let's go over the schedule again. The very next thing that's going to come out from John Delarose is what?
Somebody had a question. Yes, it's going to be 5 issues when it's done for the Ember War. And the next thing that's coming out is this Night Training, which we read today. That's going to be out July 18th. My crowdfund Patreon whatever is down right now, so I can't even shill any short stories for that at the moment. I went and did a like alternative service because they do free speech, and I didn't want to support somebody who's anti-free speech like Patreon, and Stripe pulled their ability to charge people. So I'm actually stuck there at the moment. So the next thing will be the Night Training by me, and it's a novella in my steampunk universe. The 18th, that's coming up pretty quickly actually. So yeah, we're looking at 15 days. And then I'm going to be launching this Flying Sparks comic Kickstarter for my superhero universe, A Hero and Villain in Love. DC, thank you DC Comics for screwing up the Batman Catwoman thing. This is the best marketing. This is the best marketing thing I could ever ask for, because you know, a lot of these guys, you know, it's very bizarre. Like if you look back to like the 70s and 80s Marvel with under Gary Conway and all that, or even Jim Shooter, you know, those guys really nailed like the Peter Parker romantic connections. And if you look, about a third of the issues were all kind of dedicated towards Peter Parker's personal life. And it was really fun to watch him grow personally and then get tangled up in the superhero things that would complicate that. I wanted to recapture that feeling. That's what I was going for. And so when I see like this modern style book come out and they make this romantic thing that feels very forced for a forced event, and then they don't deliver to the fans even what they promised to deliver to the fans, it's like you know, it's really sad to watch. But I know I can do better, and I'm going to show you that I can do better, which is what is exciting to me. So that's the week after my novella, just a 99-cent deal, so it's not going to break the bank or nothing. We're going to have our full-on crowdfund for the comic. Get this going. This is going to be my first arc in this. So Flying Sparks, the story is actually meant to be about 15 issues long for the main story. I mean, I can keep going forever, so you guys know that. But so we're going to launch the first 3 of that, and that's all done. Coloring's done. Everything's done. I'm going to get it relettered with new dialogue because I'm going to edit my dialogue and make it a little better, and see how that goes. I currently have 8 issues done through line art, and it's the same team as the Ember War. We'll see. We'll see how it does. If it does well, we'll put out the rest and keep it going. And if it doesn't, then is what it is. So.
Now here's a challenge. Here's a challenge that I think people are going to have to solve soon. That I'm hearing from a lot of the boys, is they need like they want something that's, if stuff is going to come from alternative methods, they need to be able to count on being able to get like some sort of monthly or reoccurring source of entertainment. Because right now the model, while a couple of these Kickstarters have been vastly successful, the big ones aren't even close to delivering yet.
Yeah, so that's where I think I'm going to be pretty different on this, because I've got the art done. All I need to do is kind of get the lettering redone. I'm hoping to have this printed and going within a month after the Kickstarter, maybe, and have it digitally. I'm going to put it out digitally to everybody first. Just here's the digital book. Your print book will be coming in a few days. And so we'll have it going really quick on the Flying Sparks end. We're, probably an ETA of like, let's see, it ends July. So if we're starting in July, it'll end in August. You'll have it in an ETA like September, October is the hopes. And then Ember War, because I'm getting it all done up front. I'm expecting we'll be able to deliver the first issue. We're going to deliver the first issue of it immediately to backers because it's done, and then parse it out digitally, one issue at a time as they come out, monthly, hopefully, if the artist maintains his pace and nothing goes wrong. And then we're shooting for like getting it done end of November, early December. So maybe paperback goes out January, February. So
that's on Ember Wars, or that's
Ember Wars. So Flying Sparks should be getting in people's hands like September, October. So and I am gonna just do it in monthly chunks on the digital version, so that people can get that get the story periodically if they want to wait to read the graphic novel, they can, but they'll have the content coming to them pretty regularly.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that people are worried about right now is that, okay, I'm going to get your story, you're going to give me a great story, and then I'm not going to get anything else from you from like 6 months.
Yeah, it's going to be hard. So fortunately with Flying Sparks, I've already got a second volume done if it warrants it. So we can come out with that pretty quickly if we need to. If people don't pick it up, then it is what it is. The Ember War, we're going to try to, Richard Fox really wants his whole series as books. So I'm actually working to try to get book 2 and 3 started now so that we can get those out next year. And then hopefully get at least an issue worth of Ember War comics out, maybe, 10 out of 12 months of the year. If we can do that, I think, I'm new. So forgive me if I miss this a little bit, but this is what I'm going to attempt to do. And I'm also not full time. I'm still working. So, if this stuff goes gangbusters, maybe I'll go full time and this will be my business. Right. But we're going to try.
So for Flying Sparks, have you figured out any of the price entry points yet? Have you done your cost calculations? What's it going to cost? What's going to cost the boys to get a copy?
Flying Sparks, I think we're going to try to do, I think it's going to be 66 pages for 25 but I am going to offer a digital only reward for people who want it, which is something some of the big boys aren't doing. Just to help the affordable price point there. This is my first art cost, and I'm in the hole big having this much art done, guys, without releasing anything, as you can imagine. So I do need to recoup some of that pretty quickly to keep this rolling. I'm going to have a digital price point, I think of like $12, which is about, it's about $3.99 an issue. So that's about what you normally pay for a comic book.
Yeah. That's and is it only going to be delivered through? Is it going to come through Comixology, or how do you intend to do fulfillment and such?
Um, I'm the physical issues. I'm not going to do issues for Flying Sparks, like single issues. I might later through Archaven, but not with the Kickstarter. We're going to do a 66 page. What Brett R. Smith talked to me about is he really likes the like European model where you have like this like nice thicker story, and you come out with one every half a year or whatever, and it builds that way, and you can get a hardcover or whatever, and it's a little classier the way the Euros do it, and they have a much healthier comic industry over there.
Mm.
So I wanted to replicate that a little more with the like sort of 66 page thing. So I'm not going to come out with single issues of that initially, at least in paperback form. Yeah, there'll just be the one that has the three parts, basically we'll call it, in the volume. Now on the digital end, what were you asking? Will be out on Comixology. I'm going to come out with probably just a PDF through me first. I know Archaven, because Comixology you have to set up as a company to get on there, and they have to approve you. It takes months.
Right.
And I know Archaven's going through that process right now. So I'm probably later on going to put them out single issue through them. We're going to run this a lot more. So you're dealing with book people now, not comic people. And we're going to run this a lot more like we run books on Amazon, more than like you're traditionally used to seeing comics. So quite often we'll get a book like this. We'll have the digital version come out, and then the print version will be a couple weeks later because it takes Amazon time to process the print version. We're going to get it going and just keep coming out with the content, and then come out with it in as many different forms as we possibly can, just to reach as many people as we possibly can. We're not going to worry about the like, oh, it's the number one's out this week and this is the release week. It's that's kind of an old comic book store mentality, which I mean, it kills the sales of your books after, the first couple of weeks, which is part of the problem with the industry.
Mm. Yeah, and there were numerous problems.
Yeah,
It's just no. I think people have this particular pacing for the way they like to. Every Wednesday, a lot of people slog down to the comic book where you do yourself just about every Wednesday.
absolutely. I do. I'm used to it. And I'll try to do the digital content in chunks monthly for both Ember War and Flying Sparks for people who get the digital versions of these, or and the digital versions will be included with all the paperback versions too.
Yeah.
I think the big boys are making a little bit of a mistake by not doing that. It's I know most of the comic readership hasn't moved over like the Kindle readership has. 90% of my book sales are digital. And so I understand, obviously we're going to do print because people like that in comics, but I think people would prefer to have content coming regularly than hope to get it in 6 months or to a year. Right.
Yeah, yeah. And digital makes stuff accessible quickly.
Yep.
Did you back Cowboy Jack Irons? Did you back his project?
I'm not familiar with what that is, but you can send me the link. If I like it, I
Yeah,
will.
I'll send you a link. But the cool thing he did is he's already got his first comic in digital form, and so you can read that and then see if you want to help get the second one made.
That's
So
cool.
it's not a blind buy-in. You can see if you're feeling what he's putting down.
Yeah. And I think as I do them in the future, we're going to try to set these up regularly. So since I've got this sort of like first volume for Flying Sparks, and I've got a second volume ready to go also, it's like, we'll do that maybe, since we got to have the Ember War and give some space for people. But, we'll maybe do that December, January or something, and just keep it going so it's regular. So if you got the first one, you'll know you like the second one, and I don't know. This is the new business model, so we'll see if it works.
Yeah, yeah. It's just stuff to be ironed out.
Yeah,
Stuff to be ironed out. Some of the kids are telling me they're feeling a little bit of fatigue. Uh, but I think if it's fun, and there's something for people to wrap their heads around, I think that can be addressed.
absolutely. And I think they're getting fatigued because we're all new creators, and you don't have any product in your hands. So they're getting fatigue of backing these things, getting very excited on the internet, and then not having something, right? It's like you said. So my ability to come out faster is going to be I think a boon for that. But also, once you start getting these, what's going to happen after all over time? You look. I'm going to come out with a Kickstarter every 6 months, and Ethan's going to come out with a Kickstarter every 6 months, and DNC is going to come out with one every. He can't come out with them at this rate forever, every 6 months or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And you're going to buy a trade paperback graphic novel every 6 months that's about 5-6 issues, and you would have bought Batman over the course of time. It'd be about that much. I mean, maybe it's a little bit more because Marvel and DC have just such a lock on their printing costs and their shipping costs, which we can't do as small independent people. But it's pretty close. It's gonna, if you like our product, it's just gonna end up changing buying habits a little bit. Is what's gonna go on. And I know people don't like this. I know people love the comic book store, and it's the same thing with bookstores. I love going to bookstores. Trust me. I don't want to click on Amazon. But I mean, if the industry is going to move to a more independent thing and not controlled by an oligopoly, we're going to have a different business model. It's just going to be how it's going to go, and it's going to go this way because the oligopoly is always going to be producing bad content, and people are getting fed up.
I don't see any. I haven't seen any single concession from Marvel.
None.
I have not heard a single thing that leads me to believe, hey, we heard you. We're going to make some adjustments. We're going to make some concessions. We're going to make sure that we give you some of the stuff that you've been missing. The closest I've got to that is, hey, we've heard you don't like it when we change around characters, so we're bringing back Iceman, and he's still gay.
Right. Yeah, it's unfortunate, and I mean, people seem to push DC a little better, and I think DC's been pushing better art quality than Marvel lately. But I mean, these stories that are coming out of DC aren't more memorable. They're not better versions of the characters. They're not pushing their characters and actually letting them grow in any capacity. They're doing about the same thing. Because both of these companies, their entire existence you don't matter. Their entire existence is to maintain these properties so movies can draw from them. That's it. That's all they care about at this point. And then all their other stuff, they don't even have to really make a profit, so they can screw around and put all these political, social messages in there and just do whatever they want. And so they do. And that's what's going to happen. DC's launched their new YA initiative or whatever, which is pure social justice, right?
YA or the Vertigo stuff.
They have a YA line they announced also, not just the Vertigo, right? They're both the same thing at the end of the day, which is just more political social justice initiative.
SJWs don't tend to have a lot of children, and last time I checked, Mr. Biggles, while he might be a cute, fluffy kitty, can't read. So,
right. It's just stupid all the way around. But I mean, there's at both companies there's some nice creators, of course, too. But overall, the editorial direction is pushing in a way that does not care about you as a customer. So, what I'm doing personally, and what I've done for a while, is I've backed off buying any of these books. I don't really buy any DC books anymore. I don't buy any Marvel books in years. And I save those funds, and now I'm and I buy the books from the store too. You always hear me talking about Matt Kinn, if you follow me on Twitter.
Yep.
And I buy everything he puts out. But I'm saving more of that money to back more of these Kickstarters and try to push the industry in this direction, because not only is it nice to support these people, but these people have more creative freedom without this like editorial political arm looming on them, and that's what a healthy industry needs, is the creative freedom for the artists.
Yeah, and we've got Frank right here in our YouTube chat is saying that DC is pushing a better sleep aid.
Yeah. Nothing matters. Here's the deal: if they kill Green Lantern, he's going to be back next year. Nothing matters in in these universes at all. They're not telling stories. They're maintaining brands. That's it.
So if you're watching this sometime in the future, today was the day I think they spoiled the fact, the New York Times spoiled the fact that Batman would not, in fact, be getting married. So it almost feels like it was a sales gimmick to get people to invest in the storyline, buy up with these comics, and there's no payoff.
Yeah.
What is the payoff? Like some kind of nod to like female vanity or something?
Yeah,
Or
I'm gonna write a blog about this because this is like writing 101. And I know Tom King is praised and hailed by everybody. And I don't know anything about the guy, so I don't got any beef with Tom King or anything like that. But when you make promises as a writer, you have to deliver them. I'm not saying there's a fine line between putting in a twist in your book, because you don't want something to be so obvious to a reader that they're bored, right? But there's a fine line between doing the twist and between selling your reader something and then just going way off in left field and nope, never mind. That's tricking your reader. And when you're tricking your reader, you're insulting your reader because you're telling them you're too dumb to know what I'm going to do, and I'm just going to rub it in your face. And that just leaves a bad taste in everybody's mouth. It's not fun whatsoever. When you're tricking readers, it's just, I don't know. It's just insulting. That's all I think about it. So when you make this big wedding event, I mean, how many issues did they come out with and make everybody buy all these tie-ins? It's absurd. And then do nothing with it. Now I see Tom King saying it's a 50-issue arc. Just bear with me for another 50 issues. That's
and why would
crazy.
anybody buy this for like a trade paperback in the future?
Right.
Because it ends with nothing.
It ends with nothing. I've been reading Nightfall. I've got the big omnibuses of those, and we know that Batman was going to come back, and we knew that things were going to happen. But we watched this whole thing with the setup was beautiful, and the Bane breaking Batman's back. They didn't trick you with that. It happened, and it was it's chilling even knowing now 20 years later, because I've already read this when I was a kid, that he's coming back. That was a powerful moment, and they went for it. And watching Azrael just get more brutal and awful, and they're actually showing you don't want this out of Batman. You don't want Batman to lose control, and that was kind of the purpose of the arc. You don't want this Punisher style person being Batman. And it's really staggering to watch how much emotion and development of characters is put into this versus what we get today.
Yeah, because the whole thing, particularly with a character like Batman, he's so ruthless and powerful beyond what he can do, just physically, the things he can achieve. If he doesn't have some kind of moral constraints, he's actually worse than Lex Luthor. Yeah.
Totally.
and his replacement, a physically capable man with no moral restraints is essentially a homicidal machine.
Yeah. Now I don't like. Now DC was very big on not going into the personal elements of the life so much. And they're still that way to some extent. So Batman is in costume like 24 pages out of 24 pages, and I think you need to show what the guy's doing when he's sleeping, who the guy's hanging out with on the side, because we're not all going 24 hours a day always. And I think DC failed in that back in the day a little bit, and they still do, compared to the way Marvel handled things back then. But yeah, I mean, there's still just much better stories than we're getting today.
Well, and some of that stuff helps too, though, because you've got to have like some rising action.
You got to get a break, right? If you're just
something
going
to break
like
it up.
this, you're going like this. So it's like you got to have that sort of that sort of breath in there. So
yeah,
I hope I did that with Flying Sparks. You guys will have to tell me once it comes out here.
Well, John, does this feel like a good time to sew it up?
Absolutely, unless you want me to ramble about the comic industry for another hour, I can do that. Cool.
Oh
So
my.
hopefully you guys like this. Hopefully it was a fun enough opening, introducing the James character. Thank you for reading, Edwin. This is I really appreciate it. You sound great.
Oh, it was very easy to read. It's very easy. So if you heard me stumbling anywhere, that was absolutely my fault. This is very well written, and for the most part, it was flying right off my tongue.
Cool. All right, good guys. Good night, and we will see you soon. And I should have some like exit tagline, but I don't. See ya.